A decade ago, I left my job at the UN because I felt like it was not the place to make a change, and my experiences there had completely disillusioned me from development work. So much so that I'd given up on the idea of making a change altogether, and my interest then took me in a very different direction for many years. But last year, I got the opportunity to work as a consultant for local charities in Rwanda, and my passion for development work immediately got sparked again. So I was sent to work with this woman who was in her mid-30s, called Jackie, who had survived the 1994 genocide. And to express what she had suffered, she became an artist. And in fact, one of the first women to play the traditional drums, which was quite revolutionary because in her culture, this was reserved for men only. So as a feminist, I immediately fell in love with her. 5 years ago, Jackie started this wonderful small arts education charity that was working with local orphanages. And one of the things she did was putting on these heartwarming performances in which street children tell their true life stories. It was just them on stage, and the applause from the crowd gave them an amount of support many had never experienced before. And that self-confidence gave them faith in their future, and they started caring about and improving in school. So when I finally met Jackie in Kigali, we greeted each other, both a little nervous, and I told her that being an actress myself, I loved her work, and that I was really excited to see how I could support her. And so as we got started, I asked her about her plans for the year ahead, and she very excitedly waved me over. And then she rolled out this architectural plan in front of me. And as I look at it, I'm thinking, why is she showing me a theme park? She goes on to explain that her charity needs to become more sustainable because of financial problems. So she stopped all the work with the kids and is now trying to focus on building this children's center. And then she walks me through her center. There was a main building, 8 stories high, and it had an inbuilt food court, and a library, and a doctor's office. There were 3 event spaces, an open-air theater, and next to that, a roller coaster. And by the way, this was not a mock-up. She'd paid an architect $2,000, US dollars, to design this. So now I was in shock. I knew this woman was incredibly bright and had done amazing work, but right now she was working out of a garage and didn't even have enough funds to pay herself a salary. And her solution to this was to invest in this massive, out-of-scope center and to discontinue all her work with the children. A side of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all, but it wasn't funny because it was real. Basically, her charity had stopped existing, and I wasn't even sure if she was aware of that. So after a night of racking my brain on how to fix this, I came back in the next day with a plan. First, I had her calculate the number of staff members she would need for her center, and she got to 22 employees. 22, including a full-time librarian. And when that number didn't seem to concern her, I had her calculate the salaries for that staff. And she got to 130,000 US dollars every year. Now the biggest amount she had ever been funded was 10% of that. So there, evidence. But Jackie had a solution, which was to rent out rooms in the center, and that would cover all the costs for events and weddings. That'll do it. No amount of math could sway her. She was dead set on her plan. So that night, as I got home after another wildly unsuccessful day, I started to feel really desperate. I was pacing around my room, talking to myself, and I had all these malaria-ridden mosquitoes buzzing around me, and after realizing that killing them would not help my situation, I eventually decided to call head office in London and ask for advice. And after an hour of arguing, they concluded, well, the best you can do is just to be friendly and work with her on her plan. And they hung up. And I was alone in my room, and all I could think was, no. I did not come here to just play nice and not actually help someone who really needs support. But I was out of ideas. If I told her the truth, she wouldn't trust me any longer. And if I didn't, she would ruin her charity and probably not return to her work with the children ever. So the next day, as I stood at the whiteboard, getting ready for another day, I felt angry. Not at her, but I felt left alone by the less than helpful advice from London, and alone with my dream of actually making a difference for this woman's cause. And suddenly that bitter, disillusioned feeling from the UN came right back up inside of me. But as I had no better idea, I surrendered. And against all my better judgment, I put my full focus on legitimately getting her that center built. And as I got really into it and had the courage to point out all the hurdles, not to convince her that she was wrong, but to find a solution, something started to change in her face. She started to look concerned. And then she said, "This is a mistake, isn't it?" She realized that this is not at all what she wanted and stared in disbelief at her own plan. And I was thinking to myself, why? What is happening here? How did that work? But it did, and I was very happy. We designed a mini version of her center right there in her garage. The library turned into a bookshelf, the event space became a little painting desk, and the theater became a TV corner for movie nights. It would not serve all the kids straight away, but it was a start, and it liberated her time to go back to her projects. So on our final day, as we sat down together to say our goodbyes, she looked me into the eyes and started crying and said, "Thank you, Jenny. I worked so hard for 5 years, and I was tired and disappointed by all the challenges, and I was out of ideas. And then I prayed to God for direction, and He sent you, and you gave me a new way forward." And so then I cried, because I didn't realize how much I needed to hear these words. Not out of self-affirmation, but because 10 years earlier, the hope that I could make a change had left me. And through Jackie and Rwanda, I got it back.